Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer, that is me, who's seen it all, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I am your host, Jeff Pearlman. And this is the second part of a two-part series about Bo Jackson and the greatest plays of Bo Jackson's career. Part one was all about baseball and his time with the Royals and climbing up walls and leading off games with home runs and all that crazy shit. But this is about Bo Jackson playing football. And for those of you who may not know, Bo Jackson won the Heisman Trophy at Auburn, was the number one pick in the NFL draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, hated the owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Hugh Culverhouse, thought he was a racist, thought he was deceitful, thought he lied to him, and instead signed with the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals were psyched because they had this guy who they thought could be the next Roberto Clemente, the next Mickey Mantle. Well, Bo Jackson starts getting antsy, and he tells the Royals he wants to play football, but only as a hobby. Only as a hobby. And he signs with the Los Angeles Raiders with the idea that once baseball season ends, I will jump to football and I'll play football, but it'll just be my hobby. So a lot of the Kansas City Royals are really pissed about this. They're like, this guy doesn't care about baseball. He doesn't want to develop. The front office, the John Sherholtz, the general manager, is really mad. But in football land, people are psyched. Bo Jackson's going to be a phenomenon. And Bo Jackson shows up with the Raiders after baseball season ends. And in one of his first workouts with the Raiders, they decide they're going to time him in a 40. And Tom Flores is a head coach, and they set up a 40, and it's on grass, and he's in pads, and he runs a 4.19 40. And Bo Jackson's about 220 pounds in pads. And Tom Flores, the coach, doesn't believe it. And they have him run it again, and he runs a 4.17, which is utterly preposterous. There's no one in the NFL right now, not Jamar Chase, not Tyreek Hill. Pick your guy who runs that fast. Bo Jackson did. And one of Bo Jackson's first games is against the Denver Broncos. This is November 22nd, 1987. And so far, his career, his early games have been okay and good, and there's promise here. Nothing exceptional, but good. But now it's the Broncos. And the Raiders and the Broncos hate each other. And the Broncos come to LA, and one of their standout players is a cornerback named Mike Harden, who played his college football at the University of Michigan. And Mike Harden is known as one of those 80s guys, one of those hit you late, hit you cheap, forearm to the head, take out your shin, take out your knee, doesn't give a shit about your safety. If a receiver's crossing over the middle, Harden was going to take him out. He was kind of a Jack Tatum type guy, an assassin type guy. And he used to wrap his forearms in medical tape to be used as weapons in the same way Walter Payton did at Jackson State. I'm going to fuck you up. I'm not just going to hit you, I'm going to fuck you up. And in the lead up to the Broncos game, Raiders coaches are talking to their players about Mike Harden. Mike Harden's a dirty player. Watch out for Mike Harden. You can't trust Mike Harden. Always keep your eye out on Mike Harden. And Bo Jackson doesn't really give a shit. And it's now 13-0. Broncos take an early lead. And 8 minutes and 35 seconds have gone by in the second quarter. And the Raiders have the ball, and Mark Wilson is the Raiders quarterback. And he's a guy out of BYU. So no one has any fear of Mark Wilson. He's a mediocre NFL quarterback. So a lot of them play the run, and they play the run. And Bo Jackson is lined up in the backfield. And there's this play that the Raiders have called Bo Reverse. And they invented the play a few weeks earlier because Bo Jackson went the wrong way in a play, was supposed to cut left, cut right. The defense followed him. He cut back the other way and picked up a good gain. So the Raiders coaches and their offensive coordinator, Terry Robisky, put this in the play called Bo Reverse. So they're playing the Broncos. Mark Wilson takes a snap, Bo Reverse. And he pitches the ball to Bo, and Bo starts heading this way. And the two linebackers for the Broncos, the two main linebackers, Carl Mecklenburg, Jim Ryan, follow him. And all of a sudden, he does a 360 in the backfield, cuts the other way, linebackers freeze, and he bursts through the hole. And he's running down the field, and he's 10 yards into the secondary. And who's waiting there but Mike Harden? And Mike Harden gets ready. And Mike Harden is not fearing anyone. Not Bo Jackson, not Eric Dickerson, not Freeman McNeil. He does not give a shit. He's going to blow you up. And Mike Harden is preparing for Bo Jackson. And Bo Jackson is coming straight at him. And Mike Harden later said, I kind of expected Bo to juke. I'd never played against him before. I figured he'd try to, but no. Bo Jackson comes straight at Mike Harden. And Mike Harden comes straight at Bo Jackson. And Bo Jackson runs him the fuck over. He just runs right over Mike Harden. And nobody ran over Mike Harden. And he steamrolls him, jams his shoulder, jams it under him. And Dick Enberg is calling the game for NBC. And he goes, Bo Jackson, oh, like that. And he runs over him. And the funny thing is, Tony Lilly was a defensive back with the Broncos, and I interviewed him for my book. And he's being blocked by a Raiders receiver named James Lofton. And Lofton is blocking him. And Tony Lilly says to James Lofton, don't let go of me. I don't want any part of this murder. And Bo Jackson is running down the field. And there's one guy who has a play, possible play on Bo Jackson. And it's a defensive back for the Broncos named Mark Haynes, who used to play for the New York Giants. And Haynes pulls up. And you see him pull up in the distance. And later on, someone in the media said, why'd you pull up? And he's like, man, I didn't want any part of that. And Bo Jackson winds up in this game running for 88 yards, 2 touchdowns, 13 carries. But what's remembered is the moment when he took away Mike Harden's manhood. And that's not even his best run. If there's one game that people think about when it comes to Bo Jackson in football, it has to be November 30th, 1987, the Kingdome in Seattle. The Los Angeles Raiders travel to play the Seattle Seahawks. And at the time, both these teams are in the AFC West. The Raiders are 3-7 and they kind of suck. Seattle's 7-3 and they're really good. And what people remember from this game the most is Bo Jackson running over Brian Bosworth, the Seahawks rookie middle linebacker with the mohawk, and he called himself the Boz. And he was this brash, arrogant guy out of the University of Oklahoma. And later on in the game, Bo Jackson runs him over, and forever it's known as his play. But for my money, that's not the best play in the game. The best play came earlier. The Raiders have the ball. They're in their own territory. Mark Wilson is the quarterback. You have Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen in the backfield. And anyone who covered the Raiders, or anyone who was close with the Raiders, or anyone who knew the Raiders at that time, knew that Marcus Allen, this legendary halfback, this future Hall of Famer, this Heisman Trophy winner from USC, this local kid who came to the Raiders and guided them to a Super Bowl win over the Redskins a couple years earlier, that Marcus Allen did not enjoy this whole Bo Jackson thing. Because when Bo Jackson arrived, Marcus Allen was shifted from halfback to fullback. And Marcus Allen did not consider himself a blocking back. Anyone's blocking back. And all of a sudden, he's playing fullback, and he hates his shit. He's not happy about it. But here they are, and they're in the backfield. And Terry Robisky, the offensive coordinator, calls a play, and it's called 17 Bob Trail. And the 1 in 17 means it's going to the halfback. The 7 is where the hole between the left tackle and the tight end. Bob means back on backer, meaning the fullback, Marcus Allen, is blocking the linebacker. And again, Marcus Allen hated this shit. He didn't want to be a blocker. He wanted to be running the ball. Don Mosbar is the center. He snaps the ball to Mark Wilson. Wilson takes it, gets it to Bo Jackson. Marcus Allen seals off Patrick Hunter, a defensive back. And Bo runs through a hole, past the right guard. And all these Seahawk players have angles on him. All of them. Eugene Robinson, a Seahawk safety, has an angle. Bo not only runs past him, but smashes his head to the ground en route. And Bo Jackson goes past Eugene Robinson and heads to the sideline. Brian Bosworth has an angle on him, leaves him in the dust. Kenny Easley, the future Hall of Fame safety, has an angle on him, leaves him in the dust. Robisky, the offensive coordinator, later said to me, angles don't mean shit when it comes to Bo Jackson. The last guy with a shot at Bo Jackson, and he's running down the sideline at full speed, is a former North Carolina Central defensive back named Arnold Brown. And he was a former track star in college, and Bo just bursts past him. And on the Seahawks sideline is a guy named George Dreyer, and he is a Seattle defensive line coach. And he's holding papers in his hand like this, and Bo runs by, and the papers just blow away out of his hand from the force. He swore to me, from the force of Bo Jackson running by. And Bo runs down, and Dave Craig, the Seahawks quarterback, was standing there, and he wasn't actually looking up, and he hears shh. He literally told me, I hear shh. And there's the sound of Bo Jackson running by. And people have described the Bo Jackson sound as a swoosh, as a whoosh, as like Superman flies through the air in the movie Superman. They describe it as a horse running by, as a car driving by. There are a million different ways to describe Bo Jackson running at full speed, but he runs 91 yards down the sideline, and he doesn't stop. He runs into the tunnel, up the tunnel, and the announcers are like, there goes Bo. He's in Tacoma, he's in wherever, and he's gone, and he runs off into the darkness. Bo Jackson does something I love. He comes out of the tunnel, he's surrounded by teammates. He takes the football, and he throws it in the air and does a fake swing with a baseball bat, a nod to his baseball playing. He winds up carrying 18 times, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Raiders win. It's maybe the most amazing just moment of someone arriving in the history of professional football. And it was only Bo Jackson's 5th game. All right, so this is the 3rd Bo Jackson football story. And it's not a happy one. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Nobody dies. But I wouldn't say it's a celebratory story. And this is the final football play of Bo Jackson's career and Bo Jackson's life. It's January 13th, 1991. We're in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. And the Raiders are hosting the Cincinnati Bengals in a playoff game. It's kind of funny because the night before the game, the Bengals are staying in a hotel in LA. A bunch of them ordered room service and they puked their guts out leading up to the game. And Boomer Esiason, the quarterback, told me a lot of guys were really not sure whether they were going to play. But they show up, their skin is green, they're puking the buckets, but they're playing football. And the Raiders are favorites, and the first half goes their way. They're up 7-3. Bo Jackson is their starting halfback. He runs for 43 yards on 5 carries. And the Bengals have a linebacker named Kevin Walker. And unless you are the biggest nerd in the history of Cincinnati Bengal fandom history, you have no idea who Kevin Walker was. But Kevin Walker was a kid from West Milford, New Jersey, went to University of Maryland on a football scholarship, went there as a fullback. The head coach, Bobby Ross, said, you know, you're not that great of a fullback, but you run a 4.5 40. Why don't we move you to linebacker? And they move him to linebacker, and he's kind of a phenomenon. He's a great college linebacker. 1988 NFL draft, Cincinnati Bengals used the 57th pick to take Kevin Walker out of Maryland. And by 1990, he's their starting linebacker, and he's a good, solid player. He's not great, but he's solid. And in this game against the Raiders, his job really is to shadow Bo Jackson. In the same way later on, guys would shadow Michael Vick, or guys would shadow Lamar Jackson. His job was to shadow Bo Jackson, follow him around, contain him, which, as he said to me when I interviewed him, is a fucking hard thing to do. Second half, Raiders get the ball, and they're on their own 23-yard line. On first down, Jay Schrader, their mediocre quarterback, drops back, throws to the wide receiver, Mervin Fernandez, incomplete. And now it's second down, and the play called is 28 Bo reverse left. And he's lined up with Marcus Allen at fullback. Jay Schrader's a quarterback. He flips the ball to Bo. Bo follows Marcus Allen to the right, and he takes off. And Bo Jackson is on one of those bursts where he's charging down the field. And he passes Kevin Walker. He blows way past Kevin Walker. And Kevin Walker's left in the dust. And Bo Jackson's running down the field. He's charging down the field. He's just speed. He's a blur. You're hearing whoosh, 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 and whoosh, and this whole thing. And the Bengals have a safety named David Fulcher, a really good player, a Pro Bowl caliber safety. And he kind of gets in Bo Jackson's way for a second. Just for a second. And he slows Bo Jackson down where he has to pause and kind of pivot for a minute. And in that second, Kevin Walker, West Milford, New Jersey, former fullback, converted to linebacker, never the greatest athlete, but a hard-nosed guy, a quick learner, smart guy, recovers and gets back in the play. And he jumps in and he grabs Bo from behind. And he's holding on to Bo Jackson for dear life. And he's an anchor on Bo Jackson. And Bo Jackson is moving forward, and Kevin Walker is holding on to him. And he slides down to his leg, and he's gripping onto his leg. And Bo Jackson falls down. And what happens is Bo Jackson's body is moving forward, but his leg isn't. And in that moment, his hip pops. Pop. And Bo Jackson falls to the ground. And it's not obvious at all what's happening. Bo Jackson was indestructible. Nothing hurt Bo Jackson. Nothing got in his way. Nothing stopped him. Heisman Trophy, 2-sport star, All-Star Game home run, running up a wall. There was nothing that could stop Bo Jackson. He certainly wasn't going to get stopped by this mediocre linebacker from the University of Maryland who nobody's ever heard of. But he's on the ground, and he's not getting up. and he's helped off the field. And one of the guys who helped him is a Raiders tight end named Ethan Horton. And he actually looked at Bo, and he saw Bo had some tears in his eyes. And Ethan Horton told me, he was like, oh, fuck. Because this is not a guy who cried, ever, or showed pain, ever. And Bo Jackson is helped off the field. And two of Bo Jackson's baseball teammates, George Brett and Mark Gubiza, were at the game. And Mark Gubiza was sitting with Bo Jackson's sons in the stands. And Bo Jackson kind of signals for Mark Gubiza to bring his kids down. And Bo Jackson is sitting on the bench with his kids watching the rest of the game. And the game ends, and Bo Jackson is kind of limping off the field, and they go to the tunnel to get out of the stadium. The Raiders win, and Kevin Walker, who had never met Bo Jackson, walks up to him, and he's like, Bo, I really hope you're okay. I'm so sorry I'm the guy who tackled you. And Bo's like, don't worry about it. I'm sure I'll be back next week. Well, sitting in the stands for this game is a woman named Marcella Flores, and she's a Portland, Oregon-based emergency room doctor. And her sister-in-law is Amy Trask, who's a front office employee with the Raiders. And the game ends, and Dr. Flores calls Amy Trask, her sister-in-law, and says, Amy, what are you hearing about the injury? And Amy Trask, who works for the Raiders, says, no, we're not really worried. We think it's a hip pointer. And Marcella Flores, who is a doctor, says, I don't think that's a hip pointer. And Amy Trask is like, what do you think? And she's like, have you ever heard of a vascular necrosis? And Amy Trask is like, I don't know what that is. Well, a vascular necrosis is this thing where the blood supply is cut off, your bone tissue dies, and the bone collapses. And it's really, really bad. And that was her first guess watching in the stands. And Amy Trask actually tells the owner of the Raiders, Al Davis, my sister-in-law is really concerned. And Al Davis is like, I'm sure it's fine. It's sure it's fine. The next day, Bo Jackson, who thinks he's okay, who thinks he's going to play next week against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, goes to get an MRI. And at the end of the MRI, the doctor calls Bo Jackson in, and he shows him. And he says, Bo, do you see all that black lake-looking thing on your x-ray here? He's like, yeah. He goes, that's all your blood pooling. And Bo Jackson said it's the only time he felt like passing out. And it turns out Bo Jackson's hip was not just damaged, but diseased. And that was the end of his career as a football player. And to me, it's one of the saddest demises ever. In a lot of ways, it makes Bo Jackson's legacy much more interesting. I always say, if Bo Jackson never suffers that injury, maybe he winds up having an Emmitt Smith career or a Walter Payton career. And maybe in baseball, he goes on and he's a Gary Sheffield or a Sean Green. But with that moment, with the end of his football career, with ultimately the replacement of his hip, with ultimately him just coming back in baseball and being a reduced guy, there's a huge, enormous what if that follows him for the rest of his life, that still follows him to this day. The what if, the what could have been, the what would Bo Jackson have been. The mythology of Bo Jackson isn't who he was, it's what he never became. And it all occurred because of that day, because of that injury in 1991 against the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Leave a comment below on what stories you'd like to hear more of, or if there's a particular sports figure you're interested in, just let me know. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. Thank you so much for diving behind the scenes and digging into the story. We will see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.